Backdoors on 2B2T are one of the greatest game-changing occurrences to ever happen on the server. It allows players to get beyond the server's anti-cheat system and perform things that previously appeared impossible. In the entire history of 2B2T so far, there have been 3 major backdoors, each of which played a significant influence in changing the server. From accessing creative mode, to placing signs outside the world border, and being able to locate anyone on the server. This is the history of backdoors on 2B2T and how they forever transformed the server. The story begins around January of 2012. A server-side plugin was created to correct a problem with players becoming stuck above the nether roof. This was seen as a problem since once you became stuck, there was no way to get back down. The owner of 2B2T, Housemaster, was repeatedly involved with assisting players who were stuck and eventually got tired of it. A server-side plugin was provided to Housemaster by a player named PopBob. By typing a server command /stuck, players could be instantly teleported below their current position to the next available free space below the nether roof. To the average player, this was seen as a good method to help players that were stuck, and it was. However, something much more interesting was implemented into the code of this plugin. Unbeknownst to Housemaster, this plugin granted server operator permissions to anyone that PopBob permitted. In the plugin's code, you can see a ROT13 cipher. This cipher works by replacing a letter with the 13th letter after it in the alphabet. For example, let's use the 23rd line of code in the plugin. This.names.add CBCOBO. After decoding CBCOBO in ROT13, it turns out the code is saying this.names.add PopBob. PopBob would then go on to add his friends from a base that has since become known as Plugin Town. While the group was at Plugin Town, PopBob came to tell them what he had achieved. Plugin Town members would create their builds faster, fly around spawn while spawning ghast eggs, gain access to a player's current coordinates, and could also allow PopBob to set his game mode into creative. Several players have witnessed members of Plugin Town flying near spawn and had posted their observations on a Facepunch thread. Housemaster would eventually teleport to Plugin Town and observe the group as they flew around and spawned in items. This would carry on for about a month until PopBob made a crucial mistake. While PopBob was using the /locate feature of the plugin, Housemaster was working with a couple of players to create a bait location. Once PopBob was caught teleporting to the bait location, Housemaster found exactly what was allowing PopBob to do this and removed the plugin. It was never understood why action was not done sooner and why Housemaster didn't check over the code. Housemaster didn't publicly acknowledge what had occurred, but he did leave a server message stating that he learned his lesson and that he would no longer blindly trust players. A couple of months later, a backdoor attempt would commence. Around the middle of 2012, PopBob and a player named X0XP came up with the idea of showing an exploit to Housemaster involving minecarts being able to travel infinitely with no rails and at high speed. This would cause both intense lag and world generation to the server. With this exploit, they decided to create a plugin to fix this issue and presented it to Housemaster. However, along with the Netherroof plugin a few months back, this plugin also had code to gain backdoor access to the server. To make the plugin look less malicious, they added the ability for the plugin to auto-update so it could be uploaded to the official Bucket website, which is a website for server owners to access plugins to control their servers. Housemaster decided to download the plugin but had one of his moderators remove the auto-updater from the plugin that they had made. The moderator would then host the original plugin on his own server to later find out that PopBob and X0XP were in fact trying to backdoor 2B2T once again and officially ending their backdoor attempt. A year will go by with no attempts to backdoor 2B2T. However, something major would occur during December of 2013. The beginning of the second backdoor of 2B2T occurred during December of 2013. The backdoor involved the players iTristan and Pyrobytes designing a plugin to block access to the nether roof. For it to work, they needed the plugin to fix an issue on the server. they added a functionality that claimed to fix a bug related to renaming items in anvils, but what it did in reality was make the item stack size negative if they added /0x-A7 to the end of the name of an item, effectively turning that item into an infinite. It also allowed them to bypass the nether roof blockade if they were riding an entity. They eventually made the plugin more sophisticated over time and added an auto updater that would allow them to push updates to the plugin and add more functionality without Housemaster knowing. With this, they would add commands to give items, teleporting capabilities, access to change your game mode, and much more. This is how iTristan and Pyrobytes added the infamous signs at the +X world border, how player heads are a thing, and how 32Ks were implemented to the server. Eventually, Housemaster would ask them to remove the auto updater. They would try to hide the auto updater in a third-party library, but something messed up and the plugin kept auto updating, making Housemaster suspicious and removing the plugin. However, iTristan's attempt to backdoor the server did not end there, and one of the most infamous events on 2B2T occurred as a result. The third backdoor, which began in the end of 2015, was the most severe backdoor to date. Before proceeding with the story, you must first understand the events that led to the backdoor. Housemaster gave up management of the server on July 32nd, 2014, and handed it over to his longtime friend, George Bush 420. While Housemaster had dealt with exploits and backdoors before, George Bush 420 had almost no experience, and this was a disaster waiting to happen. The official 2B2T website was one of the first things to slowly decline. The website was no longer able to stay online due to a lack of financing. The 2B2T website was a primary way for the player base to contact Housemaster and track the monthly payment goal to keep the server running at the time. The only way for the player base to connect was through Skype groups, but this was inefficient. Therefore, most players would inform George Bush 420 that they wanted the website to come back. However, George Bush 420 will argue that if the website were to come back, the player base would have to pay $250. No one anticipated anyone to finance the website because the server's donation goal barely kept the server running. But in less than 6 months, the website was paid for. The website's cost was paid for by a select few players, Imperator Tarai and XCC2 being one of the main players to contribute. The player base was ecstatic, but the website still wasn't revived, even after the donation goal was met. Many players assumed that the donation goal money was used to keep the server running, because it was so close to being shut down most of the time. After a year and a half, the website still hadn't appeared. Imperator Tarai wouldn't let it go, as he was one of the main players to donate for the website's revival. So Imperator Tarai and iTristan would make a website and hand it over to George Bush 420, and this is where the backdoor begins. George Bush 420 made a crucial mistake by running the webbox on the same server host as 2B2T. While George Bush 420 was installing software for the website, iTristan was able to backdoor the login form and phished George Bush 420's password as he typed it in to install the software. From then on, iTristan gained total root access to the server. With complete root access to 2B2T, they could upload and download region files, player files, manipulate players by moving their inventory or location, and much more. With iTristan, Taylor112, and Jared 2013, they formed the Tyranny, also known as Nerds Inc. The backdoor's primary purpose was to make a backup of ImSpace, as well as stashes of illegal items scattered over the server. After a few months, the backdoor was functional, and the Tyranny had established a new base at Taylor112's 2012 island, complete with a massive, world-edited bedrock sphere known as the Archive. They had a week where they griefed a major base every single day, earning the nickname Week of Destruction. Bases like Space Valkyria, The Lands, Space Valkyria 2, Kinograd Base, and others were included. Because George Bush 420 was friends with some Nerds Inc. members, he assisted in the production of illegal items at the Archive. Illegal items such as 32Ks, barrier blocks, and even end portals were found at this base. Around April of 2016, George Bush 420 discovered the backdoor and patched it. No one really knows how, but a possibility was by looking through the server logs. In recent years, there hasn't been a backdoor, but with the rise of game-changing exploits, and 2B2T eventually updating to a new Minecraft version, another backdoor will almost certainly emerge in the future. If there's one thing you can learn from this video, it's that you should always double check something if you're not sure. None of the chaos in this video would have occurred if Housemaster and GeorgeBush420 had double checked the plugins and had moderators review it. With that being said, stay fast, and see you guys next time.